Well, hello and welcome to session 19 of the 5-Minute Bible Guides. In session 18, we talked about the issue of whether the Bible should be interpreted literally or figuratively. We concluded that the Bible has types of writing that were meant to be taken literally and others that were obviously figurative. In this session, we'll be examining still another common Bible question. Does the Bible have errors and contradictions? So, there are entire shelves of books written for the purpose of either claiming that the Bible contains contradictions and mistakes, or for refuting these types of claims. And anybody who's read even a portion of the Bible has probably encountered passages that at least have the appearance of containing errors or posing contradictions. The portions that seem to have errors can be classified into at least 3 types. So first are the differences in the writer's perspectives. For example, in Mark 5:1-20 and Luke 8:26-39, Jesus encounters a single demon-possessed man, while in the parallel account of Matthew 8:28-34, there are 2 such demon-possessed men in that same event. Now, critics of the Bible cite this example and others like it as proof that the Bible contradicts itself. However, understanding the nature of how people commonly talk about true events that they've witnessed can shed light on these apparent contradictions. So whenever any group of people witnesses an event, each person will tend to tell the story in a way that reflects his or her own perspective. Anyone who's ever served on a jury will be familiar with this phenomenon. Probably the best way to see this story about Jesus healing the demon-possessed man is that there were indeed 2 men afflicted by demons as recorded by Matthew, but that for purposes of their own, Mark and Luke choose to focus on only one of the men healed by Jesus, maybe because he was the main player. Any group of people telling a story about the same event will feature several versions of the story that are true, but that don't include all the details, because the teller has their own selective memories of the events that happened at the time. And this happens all the time. Figures of speech and non-technical language are another source of what some people believe are errors in the Bible. For instance, Ecclesiastes 1:5 makes a statement which is technically incorrect. The sun rises and the sun sets, and it hurries back to where it rises. So from a purely scientific viewpoint, we understand that this is not what actually occurs. And yet we use this same figurative expression on a daily basis in the 21st century because from a human point of view, this is what seems to be happening. Even the weather reports talk about sunrise and sunset. I mean, duh! Then there are those quotes of the Old Testament made in the New Testament that seem to be inaccurate when you compare the 2 passages directly. What many people do not realize is that many of these New Testament quotes of the Old Testament are not directly from the Hebrew Old Testament, but are from the Septuagint, which is a Greek translation of the Hebrew Scriptures that was widely used by Jews in the 1st century. In other words, sometimes the New Testament does not quote the Hebrew Scriptures directly, but does so through a Greek translation. So for us, the Hebrew Scriptures into English are a single translation. However, from our perspective, when the New Testament quotes the Septuagint, there are 2 translation steps. So it's Hebrew to the Greek Septuagint and the Greek Septuagint to English. This process can easily account for the slight variations in wording between our Old Testament and certain New Testament quotes from it. Now, as to contradictions, this term can mean different things to different readers. Many of the contradictions that people refer to have to do with the overall teachings of the Bible. For instance, God is revealed as loving in certain portions of Scripture, while in others he seems to be full of wrath and vengeance. The truly biblical answer to this issue is that he's both. Just as we ourselves experience both love and anger, the Bible reveals God as having both kinds of reactions to people and situations that they're involved in. While some of how the Bible portrays God's attitudes and emotions may be simply anthropomorphic, that is, trying to understand God using human analogies, there are apparently certain attitudes and behavior that deeply displease God, as well as those that give him great pleasure. As to why God would command the killing of certain people in the Old Testament, while the New Testament emphasizes his great love for people and his desire that no one be condemned, well, maybe there are things about God's nature that will always be difficult for us humans to fully understand. The fact that the Bible's earliest chapters record God's delight in humans and his great sorrow at their fundamental turning away from him gives us the basic context for understanding this issue. Then again, God's consistent work to bring people back into relationship with Him through the rest of Scripture gives some perspective on what initially may seem to be a contradiction about what kind of being God is. Well, in the next session, we'll be looking into the topic that often gets overlooked in people's questions about the Bible. Are there other ancient documents that confirm the biblical record? Until then, this is Dr. Michael Bogart for the 5-Minute Guides to the Bible.